Welcome to Convince Me, presented by Bet365. We are kicking off the Power Hour, the only NFL pregame show with all the stuff you care about, none of the fluff you don't. I am Chad Millman. Over the next 30 minutes, my Action Network buddies, Sean Koerner, Simon Hunter, and Chris Raybon will try to convince me what I should be betting today for the divisional round of the playoffs. Plus, we have Evan Abrams from the Action Network news desk with market reports, trends, data, stats, all the stuff that'll make you smarter than your friends. Bottom half of the hour, the red hot touchdown show with Gilles Gallant, Brian Matthews, Charlie DiSturco, previewing the best touchdown props on the board today. Before we begin, a reminder, please like this video and subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. Also, don't forget, all the bets we talk about today are tracked for free in the award-winning Action Network app. And don't forget, BetSync, your Bet365 bets with the Action app, the coolest, slickest way to track your picks with ease and speed. Click the My Accounts button in the My Action tab in the Action app. All right, Koerner, we're going to kick it off with the Texans visiting the Ravens. The total has dropped in what will be a cold, potentially windy game from 46 to 43.5. The line has basically settled at around 9.5 after jumping around in that 10 to 9 range. Money is split. Bets are on Houston. So, Koerner, kick us off.
Yeah, so I'm going with a Texans tight end prop again this week. Only it's not Dalton Schultz because that was too nerve-wracking last week. So I'm going with Brevin Jordan under 1.5 receptions at -110. As you mentioned, the Texans are a 9.5 point road dog here. So this is a game where, it's probably going to be a trailing pass-heavy game script for them, but Brevin Jordan actually tends to see less playing time and fewer targets when the Texans are trailing. He has a 6% target share when they have the lead or tied, and it falls just to a 3% target share when they're trailing. And more than half of his routes are curls or outs. Roughly around 55% of his routes are those two routes. And the Ravens have been very good on those specific routes to opposing tight ends, allowing just the third lowest expected catch rate. And Brevin Jordan's a candidate for some catch regression. He's caught 85% of his targets this year. I'm expecting that to be closer to 78% going forward. That actually came through for us a couple of times last week, the catch regression rate. So I'm projecting him closer to a 61% chance of staying under 1.5 receptions here.
All right, so you like Brevin Jordan to not play at all, and when he plays, to have the dropsies. All right, Simon,
Yes.
What do you got?
Chad, you know where I'm going.
I do know where you're going.
Taking the Texans plus 9.5. We've loved this all week. We were just hoping it was going to get to 10. Doesn't look like we're going to get there, right? The books have held it at 9.5. They're going to keep it there. Shockingly, I thought professional money would come in on this Ravens team and never did. So, it's just going to hold here. It got down to 8.5 at its lowest point. Now it's back up 9.5, and we'll just take that number. To us, it doesn't matter as long as it's above the 8. Like we talk all the time, it's such a key number. We're happy 9.5, 9, either way. We'll take this number. So for this matchup, we talked about it. CJ is just a different type of player, right? He's the kind of guy that he doesn't turn the ball over. He makes the smart plays. He makes smart reads. If it's not there, he's okay with throwing out of bounds. He just does not force the ball. And then every now and then you get these freak moments where he's either backpedaling off his back foot, he's throwing it sidearm. He puts it right on the money downfield in a spot that only a few guys can do. And he's just a really unique player. And I had to take that when a type of guy is a 9-point dog in a matchup like this. So the Lamar stats, I get how incredible he's been this season. The trends don't really favor Lamar in this spot, right? We already talked about it all the time that Lamar is a dog, as a short favorite. We love him. Once you start becoming a big favorite, we don't buy that number. It's just, if you're betting on Lamar, these aren't the kind of numbers you want to take him at. These really big favorites are not good for Lamar. I mean, just the past 3 seasons, he's 1-8 in this exact spot, being this big of a favorite. We talked about him on extended rest, 12 days plus rest. He's 1-6. Like, these are big deals. These numbers really do bear out that he struggled in these kind of spots. And, we're talking about a guy who in his career in the playoffs, he's struggled. And it's a big deal. Like we already talked about last week with Dak. It's no fluke where these guys get into these games and the lights do get bright for them. Like that's a real thing, and it happens to a couple different players. So I'm happy to pay to see Lamar not do it because we've been fading him in this spot, and we're 3-1 against Lamar in the playoffs. So against the spread. So this is just one of those spots where the number is really big because the books need to protect against the 1 seeds. I think we're getting 2 free points of value here, and I'm going to take the Texans here at plus 9.5.
All right. Tricky spot. Very tricky spot. So much momentum for Lamar. Different kind of receiving core than he's ever had in the playoffs as a number 1 seed, which he has been before and not performed well. CJ on the road is a much different quarterback than he is at home, playing in cold weather, blustery, blowing winds. It's going to be very interesting to see if CJ can be the quarterback we all believe he is in a much more challenging spot on the road in the elements. Chris Raybon, give me something.
Well, last week we went with a Dameon Pierce under, so we're going to go with another Texans running back under, Devin Singletary under 15.5 receiving yards. He's had 13 or fewer in all but 3 games this year. So this prop has been money in the bank, and that's because he's targeted on under 13% of his routes. And 2 of the 3 times that he went over 13 receiving yards in a game this year was not in CJ Stroud starts, because CJ Stroud really does not like to check the ball down. He's always looking downfield, or he's just going to take the sack, or he is going to scramble. So check downs are like last on his flow chart. Only 6% of Stroud's targets this year have gone to Devin Singletary. Only 11% of Stroud targets overall have gone to running backs, period. 36% of Singletary's yards have come with Case Keenum and Davis Mills at quarterback. And Singletary's been less efficient with Stroud at quarterback, like probably the only dude in the world, because I don't even know how it's possible, but just 4 yards a target with CJ Stroud compared to just under 8 with all other quarterbacks. And then also, this could be a trailing game script for the Texans, but that actually doesn't really help Singletary because he's been playing almost every snap, because that's why we bet the Pierce under last week, because the Texans have been in these, neutral to positive game scripts. But when they get behind and they're in more third downs, they're in more hurry up, things like that, they tend to use Dare Ogunbowale, who is their passing down back. He really doesn't get carries, but he'll tend to play, 20, 25% of snaps a game, usually in those situations. So I think this number is too high. I have the median projected for 11, but again, he only hit 13 in 3 of his 18 games this season.
Yeah, I love this one. My only disappointment is that I bet it at 16.5 with massive juice. And if I had waited a little bit, I could have gotten it 15.5 at, minus 110. So that's a bummer. I also love the Texans at plus 9.5. I am strategically not choosing the Texans right now because there are still some things I am a little bit unsure of with CJ Stroud on the road in the elements, massively different spot. I have already bet it. You can check in the app. I'm not choosing it because I don't like it. I'm not choosing it because I like something down the road a little bit more. So let's go with Singletary under 15.5 total receiving yards for the Texans and the Ravens game today. Convince Me is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets your winnings and even parlays, and they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for the biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and older and present in Colorado, Iowa, Louisiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions and restrictions apply. All right. let's talk about, to me, the most fun game. Packers at Niners, at least of the two games today. This game, it's been bouncing around. You've had Green Bay at +10, Green Bay at +9.5. It's bouncing back up to Green Bay +10 today. You've got 57% of the bets on San Francisco. You've got 60% of the money on San Francisco. The total had been at 50.5. This morning, I saw it bounce up to 51. So people have been coming in on the over. Koerner, tell me what you got.
Yeah, so if a role player getting fewer than 1.5 receptions wasn't exciting enough for you, don't worry, I have another one. Juwan Jennings under 1.5 receptions. And Jennings always faces an uphill battle in this market, just considering he has to compete with Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle for targets. But he also, has to compete for those targets in limited playing time. He's usually only going to be out there in 3 wide receiver sets, which the 49ers use at the second lowest rate in the league. Therefore, Jennings typically needs either, Deebo or Ayuk to miss a game in order to clear this prop. In the 4 games where one of those receivers has missed a game, he's cleared this 3 times, so 75% hit rate. However, when both wide receivers are fully healthy, like today, he's been held under this in 6 of 9 games, 67%. And last year's wild card legend, Ray McCloud, has returned from IR. When he's active, he actually steals a few snaps from Jennings on passing downs. So his floor is even lower when he's active. He's been held under this in 80% of the games. So 4 or 5 games where Ray McCloud is active. So I love this under. I know it's disgusting. You just bet this, root for everybody else on the Niners to do good, and it'll cash. So I'm projecting to stay under this around 62% of the time.
Yeah, this is one of those where every single time Brock Purdy drops back, you are scanning the line to see if Jennings was on the field and then hoping he's not even in a pattern, that he's just blocking somewhere. And the ball, when the camera tracks it, the ball is not heading in his direction. But I appreciate you. We're in the middle of divisional playoffs. There are very few games left. And here we are talking about Juwan Jennings props. That's what I mean, folks. We're giving you the stuff that tells you how to win the games. We're not giving you treacly human interest stories. Simon, give me something else that might be exciting for people to bet.
A big chalk favorite, Chad, taking the 49ers -10 now. Just love this number. It might be a rare opportunity to fade a 7 seed that the public absolutely love when they're playing a 1 seed. It's never happened before. So you're going to be a part of history here, betting a chalk favorite at -10. And the numbers moved against the public here, right? The public has come in super heavy on this Packers team. I believe they're one of the biggest liabilities to sports books right now. Their money line. They're really believing this Packers team. It just feels like recency bias, right? They're the new fun, exciting toy. Everyone loves the Jordan Love story. People are ready to crown him as already a success story. The Packers did it again. Everyone's all in. They're not as good as they were against that Dallas team, right? That was like the perfect storm of you couldn't give any more confidence to Jordan Love. Everything was scheming up right with LaFleur. It was all hitting right. And same goes with their defense. Like all the turnovers they had against Dak, I can't see Purdy having that type of meltdown. And when you factor in Shanahan having their first 30 plays scripted, it just feels like a game where they could easily get a big lead if the Green Bay does go 3-0. It's going to be different. Like the Green Bay team, they had their party. They've had a great week. They're feeling good all week. Now they're just running into a team we perceive as a juggernaut, right? Like everyone believes this 49ers team. There's a reason their Super Bowl futures are the #1 team right now. Like everyone perceives them as a guarantee to get there. It all starts here. So they might come out a little slow. That's why I didn't touch the first half, even though the first half number is great. I'm not going to let the -10 scare me off. The books are trying to scare us off moving this to -10. I'm not going to let it spook me. I think this will be a blowout. We talk all the time this year. This 49ers team, they have the most 10-point plus wins this season, right? When they beat teams, they beat them. And the only team that kept it close all season in a game they got backdoored was that Rams fluky McVay kicked the field goal at the end of the game to get to the 7. So we don't see that here, right? We see this kind of being a team that if Green Bay does get down, they're not going to be kicking field goals to get this to 7, right? They're going to be going for touchdowns. They're going to be just going to broke, basically, right? It's a winner-take-all type of game. So The -10, I know people asked us about it. Should we just take teasers? Should we just do the money line parlays? No, just take the -10. It's not that scary when you have a team like the 49ers with such a high-powered offense. So gonna fade this love story, the happy ending. Not it already happened, right? They already got their amazing story. They have their confidence going into the offseason. This is where it ends. 49ers blowout. I love this at -10.
Niners by 1,000,000. Look, we love the Packers the second half of the year. We love the Jordan Love story. He has been amazing. But also, let's be real here. The Packers in the second half of the year, since they made their run, they lost to the Giants. They lost to the Steelers. They got lucky with a blown call to keep the Chiefs from getting into the end zone. The defense gave up 30 points to the Carolina Panthers. They hit the right spots at the right time, and they played well in those moments. This is a moment where they get a reality check on how good this Niners team is. Niners -10, Niners -14, Niners -21. The Niners are going to win by 4 touchdowns in this game. I'm betting alt lines. I'm betting overs. I'm betting Niners. I know. I might be mushing it all, but you never know.
Be.
Listen, I might not be because I loved the Bills last week as huge favorites. Didn't mush a thing. Raybon, what do you got?
I mean, y'all sound nervous over here talking yourselves into the 49ers. So I'm going to give people a different way to invest in 49ers success in this game. And that's Brock Purdy to not throw an interception. I love this prop because, number one, Brock Purdy has thrown 11 interceptions this year, which sounds like a lot, until you realize that they've come in bunches and they're all kind of explainable and even predictable, I would say, even though, turnovers in general are pretty random. You had interception came in 2 of the times it was against elite defenses, Cleveland, Baltimore. That's not Green Bay. Green Bay is one of the worst pass defenses in the league. 2 other games was when he was dealing with the after effects of an injury and he had no Trent Williams. Trent Williams is fine. Purdy is healthy. Had a long rest. And then the other 2 times he threw an interception in a game came against a team that he somehow faced 4 times already in his career, even though he's not even started 25 games. And that was the Seattle Seahawks. That's a divisional game. None of these apply here. So he's only thrown an interception in 6 games all year. And then you look at the Packers. Simon kind of mentioned it. This Packer pass defense, not very good. Bottom 3 in interception rate during the regular season until, playoff Dak had to go and give them some gifts last week. And on top of that, what do we know about Kyle Shanahan every time he gets into the playoffs? The 49ers go super run heavy, whether it was Jimmy G or Purdy even. Their pass rate over expected goes way down. And Purdy's only averaging 27.8 pass attempts per game this year, as is. And now he's facing a bad defense. They're in the playoffs. They're big favorite. So you could see even fewer pass attempts, which means fewer opportunities to get an interception. And Brock Purdy, in his career, has not thrown an interception in 16 of his 24 starts, regular and postseason. That is 67%. That would imply -200 odds. I'm projecting some regression there. So I still like this all the way up to -170. I know you don't like the juice, Chad, and I know you don't like sweating every time a guy drops back. But remember, Brock Purdy probably don't have to drop back that much in this game. So give me Purdy under a half an interception. Right now, I believe it's at -130. Love it there.
Essentially, Raybon, you just pointed out that all the things most people love about betting, finding the right opportunity, sweating the game, those are the things I hate. I just want a nice, smooth afternoon where I'm sitting on my couch and the Niners are up by 85 points. Can I just get that today, please? And if Jawan Jennings doesn't catch any passes, all the better. And if Brock Purdy only throws it 3 times and none of them are interceptions, fantastic. Give me the Niners -10, -11, -12, -100. As Jay Cutler might say, don't care. All right. Evan Abrams, you're sitting at the news desk right now. You're going to tell me everything that I need to know to make me comfortable with the picks that I've made so far. Isn't that right?
Yeah, comfortable is definitely the right word. But I think what we need to do is start with the Texans. So to give it a little context, 51% of tickets right now, basically 50-50. But Wednesday night, Houston had 62% of the tickets. They were the biggest public side. So you've seen some Ravens money come in, and it hasn't moved the number, which also probably says something. That game, 20 degrees, 13-mile-an-hour winds. We've seen some snow, so going to be a cold one out there. Now for San Francisco tonight, biggest public side as of now, but it's still only 56%. All 4 games this weekend, extremely tight. And we're expecting rain in this one. The only real crazy market information, 74% of tickets on the Packers over, just like last week. So everyone loves points in that game. All right. So when you talk about Ravens, Texans, I kind of want to back up what Simon said a little bit earlier. So as a favorite of 7 or more points, here's how Lamar stacks up. The Texans are averaging 23 points per game this year. When Lamar is a favorite of 7 or more, facing a team averaging 21 points per game or more, 2-9 against the spread. When the Texans are sacking opposing quarterbacks at 4.2% rate, Lamar is 0-5 against the spread in that. When it's 3% or more, he's 3-12. So not only is it just every game he's a big favorite, but these Texans metrics just don't work in Lamar's favor. Let's talk about Chiefs Bills for a second. So Mahomes, we've heard it all week, 8-1-1 against the spread. How about this one? And I'm just sharing this because honestly, I was curious and I looked it up. Super Bowl champs, when they are dogs, 58-24-2 against the spread last 20 years, 71%. Now you say to yourself, okay, well, before the ring and after the ring makes sense, right? Before the ring, 25-8, 76%. After the ring, still 67% and 11-4 ATS since 2018. So these Super Bowl quarterbacks, when they're dogs, maybe they shouldn't be. Last one. It's easy to bet the NFL playoffs if you fade teams with a better straight up record. So for example, Baltimore's 13-4, Houston's 11-7, San Francisco's 12-5, Green Bay's 10-8. Teams with a better record, 41% against the spread last 20 years in the playoffs. Profitable in just 4 of 21 seasons. They're 1-4 ATS this year. San Francisco, Baltimore, Detroit. That's what I got for you, Chad.
All right. Well, I don't like all of it, Evan. I don't like that last one. It should be noted, you mentioned the over in the Packers and the Niners game. I'm fairly certain, and Sean Koerner can back me up when we go back to the full screen here, but to the 4 screen. But Koerner, I'm fairly certain that the Packers Niners is a luck over. We can nod to that in a second. Let's get to the Bucks and the Lions, which is also a luck total, I believe. Right now, that number has moved from 47 to 49.5. The spread has been bouncing around. It was at 6. It was at 6.5. It was at 7. It went back down to 6. There's some places where it's at 6.5. 48% of the bets are on Detroit. 58% of the money is on Detroit. So, by the way, 85% of the money is on the over. You can tell that because it has gone up considerably. Koerner, just quickly, before we get to your pick for Bucks Lions, am I right? The Packers and the Niners was a luck rankings over, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. Excellent. I'm glad because I bet it 50.5. All right. What do you got?
All right. So I'm going to try a fun over here. But you've been warned. My next prop is another gross under. So you've been warned.
So this is
I'm
the one
going-
where I get to have a good time and pop a confetti. I like it.
Yes. And it's Josh Reynolds, wide receiver for the Lions, to go over 39.5 receiving yards. He's been heating up recently. His playing time has gone way up. He's run a route on 94% of Jared Goff's dropbacks the last 2 games. That was due to either Jamison Williams or Khalif Raymond being out. Khalif Raymond's already been ruled out, so I expect Reynolds to be out there running a route on most of Jared Goff's dropbacks. He's also seen 7 targets now in back-to-back games. Plus, this is a good matchup for him. The Buccaneers have allowed the 4th highest yards per attempt to wide receivers. They also blitz at a top 3 rate, and I do expect them to dial it up early and often against Goff. And Reynolds' target rate actually goes up 2% when Goff is facing a blitz. Plus, the Bucs use cover 3 at a top 4 rate. Reynolds' yards per catch actually goes up 10 yards against cover 3. So he's more likely to see explosive catches against cover 3. So I'm projecting his median way higher, closer to 47.5 yards, with about a 62% chance to clear 39.5. And this, I'm getting deja vu. This reminds me of the Brandon Cooks prop from last week, which I hit while you guys were recording your live episode of Favorites, and I couldn't scream and celebrate, so I nearly fainted, containing in my excitement. Today, I will be able to cheer loudly as I want at home when this one hits. So this should be another fun one.
Yeah, look, I love this idea. And they've got a camaraderie together. They've played together before. So, all right, Simon, talk to me.
Yeah, going with the Bucs here, and we talked all week. This line has been moving. We were both hoping it would stay at the 7. We knew it would last, though, right? We knew that the money would come on the Bucs team. The public, I think they're a little wary of this Lions team, so that's why this number feels a little closer than it should be. Where this was running up to 7, all the teasers, all the money line bets, and now you're looking at a lot of books where it's only 60% of the bets, 6% of the money right now are on this Lions team. So. Pretty, like you said, all these games are pretty evenly split, and the same goes for here. So clearly the professionals like this one. They've taken it down from 7 to 6.5. Now it's at 6 at just about every book you can get it at. And we know why, right? It's the Baker effect. Like, this team is different as a dog with Baker as their quarterback. 9-3 against the spread this season as a dog. It's not fluky. Like, we bet them all season. They just play really tough in these games. And same goes for this kind of game where, yes, the Lions are the better team across the board. We understand that they are the better team. They deserve to be the favorite here. But when you talk about their secondary, that's a big weakness. And we talked all week, Godwin and Mike Evans, these are the type of games they shine in. So we are betting at this number that Baker will show up, right? That's the biggest part of this bet, because you cannot run on the Lions. That's something they do. They play really well against. So it is all on Baker in this spot. And we know the Lions are going to get theirs, right? They have one of the best offenses in football. So not shocking that this number has come down just because of what we talked about, the Baker thing. But it is shocking that there isn't more love to this Lions team that is so good. But, I had this number 5.5. I could easily be persuaded to take the Lions, but all the trends and the number of points to take in this Bucs team. So the fact that Baker is covered in every playoff game he's ever played and also gives me confidence in this number. But the biggest one is just it's such a big number where the Lions team, we've seen it all season. Their back door is always open. Even when we backed Nick Mullins against this Lions team, he still had a chance to score a touchdown at the very end to cover that back door. So Baker's been good to us. I got to keep riding him here. I got to take the +6, Chad.
Look, this Lions secondary has just been giving it up, right? Nick Mullins, 1 400-yard game, one game nearly 400 yards. They gave up a 200-yard receiving game to CeeDee Lamb, multiple huge games to Justin Jefferson just in the past few games. So, Raybon, give me what you got here.
I mean, Simon stole my pick, so that's actually really good because I'm going with Bucs +6 as well. I had it in the outline first, but hey, every time we agree, I feel like we're
true.
Undefeated.
It's totally true.
It's actually a really good sign. But I will say this. Simon, you gave you a lot already, but I'll put it into perspective. So the Tampa Bay Bucs are number 15 in weighted overall DVOA as a team, which means they're about, just a little bit above league average. You know who's number 16? The Los Angeles Rams. The Rams closed +3 in Detroit last week. Now we have the same spot, same caliber of team, and the line is double. That just makes no sense. Baker Mayfield playing real well over his last 6 games, a 13-2 touchdown interception ratio, averaging 8.2 yards an attempt. And this Bucs team, they started 3-1. Everybody was like, okay, it's a fluke. Then they went, 1-6 over their next 7 games. Everybody's like, okay, they're coming back down to earth. This is the real Bucs. But now they close the season on a 6-1 stretch. Well, they're 6-1, including that win against Philly, with an average point differential of +8.7. So I think the real Bucs was that team that came out hot 3-1. And what happened kind of in the middle of the year was their defense got super banged up. I mean, every week they're missing like 2 or 3 key guys. Vea, Levante David missed time, Carlton Davis, or like a lot of guys missed time. They're healthy now. This Buck team is a little better than that Ram team that was catching 3, and everybody and their mama was on that Ram team last week, who, by the way, outgained the Lions by nearly 100 yards and lost by a single point in that game. So I just think the number is way too high in this spot. So give me the Bucks +6 as well.
I mean, Koerner, what do I do here? I got Simon and Raybon on the Bucks at +6. I love the Bucks as underdogs in this spot. To be honest, the only reason I'm not going with the +6 is I do think the money, these lines have been moving like crazy in the hours before kickoff. And we saw it last weekend with Kansas City and Miami. The line moved from 4 to 4.5 to 5 to 5.5 before kickoff. I do think this Bucks number is going to move back up and actually get closer to 7 when we get closer to kickoff. But screw it. I'm going with the Bucks +6.5, +6. We can split it down the middle between Simon and Raybon.
Give it to Chris. He was first. Chris was
All
first.
right.
I don't need it. I'll wait for us to go head to head on the primetime bet. Then I'll take it.
All right, fine. I'll give it to
I don't
Chris.
even know what Chad's talking about. He's like, every time I think he's gonna go with like a different pick, he just picks like not the thing he's explaining. So like I'm really confused right now. Glad we only got one more game left because I'm
glad we only got
what's going on right now.
I'm glad we only got 2 more shows after this.
I thought you were
right.
going with mine. You asked me to weigh in. I was going to
Yeah,
say go with
like,
mine. You didn't give me a shot.
All right, Koerner, you want me to go
didn't.
with yours? Tell me why you think I should go with yours instead of these 2 yahoos.
Wait, didn't we just do that already? Wasn't that the whole I don't know.
Well, I could go through my 2-minute diatribe, or I could have just given out the Bucks with everybody. So I gave you another option. I do think they keep it close, and that would only help Josh Reynolds. So another way to invest in the Bucks, keeping it close.
I'm still going with the Bucks. Let's talk about the Chiefs and the Bills, because that's the game everybody wants to watch. And it's Sunday night. Reminder, after the game, Simon and I are going live with the Favorites Pod to review all of the games from the weekend, plus preview what'll be happening in the championship games the following weekend. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen rematch. They're playing in Buffalo for the first time in front of a crowd. The real story here, Patrick Mahomes, as Evan said, 8-1-1 as a dog. They are 2.5-point underdogs in this game. Sean Koerner, give me something ugly.
All right, I'll see what I can do, but I'm going back to the Dawson Knoxwell here. I'm going with Dawson Knox under 1.5 receptions. So that's 3 props now of under 1.5 receptions.
Seriously.
Last week I gave out Knox under on 3 separate shows. Each time it was 1 yard lower. That's how confident I was in my 10.5 yard median projection for him. And sure enough, he finished with 9 yards, including a really ugly drop pass. I had mentioned he was due for some catch rate regression. It was very ugly when it happened, but it did come through. I'm projecting for him for 10.5 yards again here for his median. And this could actually be a tougher matchup for him specifically. He runs either a flat or an out route on 50% of his routes, and the Chiefs have been very good against tight ends, allowing just a 6.4 yards per attempt, second lowest rate in the league. And actually, I was going to give out under 15.5 yards, but right before we came on air, it dropped 3 yards. So people are onto this. So it's now down to 11.5, 12.5 yards, but they didn't lower the reception prop. So I found a loophole. We're going with the under 1.5 receptions. You can get it at -120 right now. You got to hurry up. It's going to drop. But I'm showing with about a 62% chance he does stay under 1.5 catches here.
Yeah, that was a real scary one. That drop. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
That could have changed everything. Simon.
Chad, give me the Bills -2.5. If not now, when? Isn't that what we all keep saying to ourselves? If the Bills can't do this now, if Josh Allen can't get over this Mahomes hump that's just tortured him these last 3 seasons in the playoffs, this is it. Like, this is truly the moment. I know their defense is banged up. Everyone knows all about that they're just fighting through a ton of injuries, the Bills team. But it all comes down to The fact that this is not the same Chiefs that people are used to, and people are betting like this is the same old Chiefs. And I can't get over the fact that we're so quick to forget what these teams are, right? Just because they play one good game in the playoffs. I mean, that's how things get skewed so heavily. And me and you talked about it before they played before the Chiefs played Miami, we said they only beat one playoff team all season. And that was that Miami team in Germany. They were 0-5 against every other playoff team. So then they beat Miami last week, and all is forgiven, right? People have just moved on. They're acting like this is what Mahomes does, right? Mahomes in the playoffs, you can't fade him. You can't fade him as a dog, especially in the playoffs. Like everyone's just drinking the Kool-Aid again, and it's overreaction. I mean, I saw a couple of really sharp books move this number to 2, and professional money came back in on the Bills. So I think it's going to hold here at 2.5. I don't think it gets back to the 3 if you were hoping that for the Chiefs, but as a Bills backer, I'm feeling confident, Chad. It feels like this is more split than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was really going to be public heavy on this Bills team, and it's not. It's really, I mean, the pros are really torn on this one where they're just scared of Mahomes, and I'm begging people, don't be scared of Mahomes. This is not the same team, and we have the numbers that back it up, right? They have not performed well this season, especially on offense. And if you're scared because the Chiefs defense has played so well this year, amazing stat from Evan. The Chiefs defense have allowed 16.7 points per game this regular season. And they only gave up 7 points in the wild card round. When Josh Allen faces defenses that give up less than 20 points per game, he's 26-1 against the spread in his career. So 70%. He performs well against these incredibly good defenses because he's a unicorn. He can run the ball. That's the difference, right? We saw last week in these games that's one or done, he's willing to put his body on the line more so than the regular season, right? We saw him pull it back a little bit this regular season. He would only really run in the red zone to get those touchdowns. Now he's open for business. Now Josh Allen knows I can put my body on the line. I just got to win this one game. So I don't think the books are counting that for enough about how different the Bills are going to play in the playoffs. And I don't think they're counting for how this is just a different Chiefs team than we've had in the past. So I'm pleading for people to take this Bills 2.5. This is such a rare, unique spot to take this number. And don't be a fool in just blindly taking Mahomes as a dog. It's just you're betting on the past, a different team, right? They don't have the same guys. They don't have the same offense. Even their defense is different than it's been in the past. So the Bills here at -2.5 at home finally get to host the Chiefs at home in the playoffs. I think they get over the hump, Chad. I think they cover this game. I think they win by 3.
Simon, that is the most passionate argument you've definitely given all season. Maybe the most passionate, convince me argument you've ever given on a side for sure. Raybon, what's your argument?
Hey, I'm going with the under in this game, under 45.5. And, Simon kind of hit on it. I think there's going to be kind of this public sentiment that, this is, 2 of the best quarterbacks in the league, which it is. And you're going to see a lot of points, but I don't think that's the case. We know that this Chiefs defense is the best of the Mahomes era. And because of that, I think Mahomes is playing differently, right? He's a little bit more willing to check the ball down. Now, if his receivers could actually catch it, that would help. But he's been a little less, aggressive this year than he has been in years past. But and Kansas City also just their tackle situation, not good, which that's never ideal. But I'm a little concerned about Buffalo putting up a big number of points too, because number one, you're again going to be without Gabriel Davis, who I think last time these teams played in the playoffs, he scored 4 touchdowns. But he's also, not only is he their deep threat, but he's also their best run blocker. And so, that just puts more on the Bills and in terms of having to figure out ways to generate offense and move the ball down the field. It's going to be a lot on Josh Allen. But also, I'm a little kind of suspicious about what's going on with Stephon Diggs. It's just been an odd year for him. His production has really fallen off over the last half of the season, especially when they switched coordinators. And then he popped up on the injury report with a foot injury that they said he suffered in the last game, but then he got removed from the injury report. So I don't know if he's fully healthy. And then you take into account the fact, temperatures looking like they're going to be in the teens, wind gusts in this one as well. It's going to be a game that's starting a little bit later in the day. And these playoff outdoor unders, that have moved down from the opening number are hitting at a 64% clip over the past 2 decades. So going with under 45.5 Bills Chiefs.
I love the under. I even love a little bit of Koerner's Dawson Knox under receptions, but I cannot ignore the pleas from Simon. He's pleading with us to take the Bills. And look, we talk about this all the time. Betting is as much about predicting when the wave has crested and when you're getting that opportunity. I agree with Simon on this one. I think we're getting that opportunity at less than a field goal with the Buffalo Bills. So give me the Bills -2.5 against Patrick Mahomes.
Let me just
Convince
say
me-
this, Chad.
Yeah, bud.
The power of me and Chris. A couple major books are already moving the Bucks to 5.5. So get
Come on.
that 6.5 if you can get
Oh,
it now.
baby. There we go.
Are
Are you
there we
kidding me?
That's wild.
I kid
I mean,
not.
I projected, to be honest with y'all, like I project that number at 4. So like I think that I thought that line was pretty egregious. That was the first side, maybe the only side I bet this weekend.
Look at what we do. You guys don't only convince me, you convince bookmakers. That's the power of this.
Unfortunately.
Knocks it down to -142.
And knocks us down to -142. And I'm sure Josh Reynolds, I'm sure his over is at 98 now.
Yeah, off the board.
Yeah, exactly. All right. That's why you got to watch the show live, folks. You got to get your bets in as soon as these guys say it. Convince Me is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day, they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boosts. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and older and present in Colorado, Iowa, New Jersey, Louisiana, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Don't forget, download the app, like us, and subscribe on YouTube. Stay tuned for the super scintillating hot touchdown show. Good luck, everybody.
Hello and welcome to another playoff edition of the Touchdown Show on the Action Network, presented by Bet365. I'm Gilles Gallant. I'm joined by my guys Charlie DiSturco and Brian Matthews. Now, gentlemen, we've got 4 huge matchups for NFL Divisional round. We've got the Texans Ravens starting us off, followed by Packers 49ers. Then we've got the Bucks and Lions, followed by the Chiefs and Bills to round out the weekend. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through each game. We're going to take a look at the anytime touchdown odds. We're going to comb that market and see what picks we like, what touchdown bets we think are going to hit. And then after we finish up, we're going to have another boosted parlay from Bet365 for the divisional round. And last week, we got a nice one to hit. We got Isaiah Pacheco and Tyreek Hill. That was boosted up from +300 to +350 from Bet365. And the Touchdown Show is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only or 18 plus in Kentucky and present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, Louisiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions and restrictions apply. All right, gents, let's start off with Texans, Ravens. Ravens, big home favorites at 9.5 points. But the total starting to trend down. We're actually, it was closer to about 45 when it opened up, now down to about 43.5. Now let's look at the anytime touchdown odds for this game. And right at the top, you've got Ravens running back Gus Edwards at +110, Lamar Jackson followed behind him at +120. Then you've got the Texans running back Devin Singletary at +130, Zay Flowers and Nico Collins right behind them at 137 and +150. Then you've got Isaiah Likely at +187, Odell Beckham at +210, and rounding out that top 8, another Ravens running back, Justice Hill at +240. All right, gentlemen. Now, usually I go first, but Charlie, why don't you go first today? Why don't you do the honors for us?
Yeah, well, what better way to start than by giving out a 10-1 touchdown score?
I love it.
I'm going to go with CJ Stroud, but a quarter unit on that. And then Odell Beckham Jr. at plus 275, not taking one of those top Ravens guys. When you look at this game, and I think this game actually fares well for CJ Stroud to use his legs. And we've looked at kind of in playoff game scenarios, especially against that Colt game, he was willing to scramble out of the pocket. And this just sets up for a game where he's going to be running for his life against a Ravens defense that is elite. So I like his chances here of when they get toward that goal line, that inside the 10-yard line. I don't think Devin Singletary is bruising by any of these linebackers. I think a guy like Stroud, he'll dip back, see no one's open, and try to make a play himself. He's deceptively athletic. I really like his chances. And I think 10-1, even as high as 11-1 out there in the market, is way too high. You look at his last 10 games, he has scored 3 separate times. So willing to take a stab here on CJ Stroud. No chalky Charlie on this one, just going as far as I can toward the other end. But I love taking a chance here on CJ Stroud. And then Odell Beckham Jr. I feel like I'm zigging while everyone's zagging here. Everyone's going for Gus Edwards. Everyone's like, oh, Lamar Jackson's finally going to get in the end zone. Well, I've done that way too many times, and I'm done with him. Odell, it's actually surprising when you look at the numbers and dig deeper. He's actually number 1 of all Ravens receivers in targets inside the 10-yard line at 7. So I think this is a game where, you know, Odell's been there, done that, went to the Super Bowl with the Rams, had 2 touchdowns in 4 games in 2021, and probably would have gotten another one if he had not left with injury. And this is a Texans team that you can throw on. They're 28th against the wide receiver 1 position in DVOA. They're 23rd against the pass. So this is a game where I think the Ravens are going to run the score up. They're going to have no problem, especially on the offensive end. And a 275 for Odell Beckham when you're getting guys like Lamar, Zay, Gus at like 150 or lower. I can't get behind that, but I'm like, when I look at Odell. So that's why I'm taking a chance here with Odell Beckham at plus 275.
For sure. Yeah. And I think with Stroud and, you know, there's some other quarterbacks as well this round, even a guy like Jordan Love. It's one of the few edges that you could still find from a quarterback standpoint in the playoffs, because a lot of the time, if you're dealing with like a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson, you're not going to get odds better than like plus 120. And then when these guys are in the second or third down spot, like within the 10-yard line, it's amazing to be able to have a ticket at 10-1 on a guy that should be able to score should he take that initiative. Odell, though, playoff Odell. I mean, the fact that he didn't play week 18, they're saving him for this spot. That you kind of use him way more once they get past the 50 as well. So Odell at plus 275 out of all of the wide receivers specifically, that's my favorite one that I think you could take. So Odell and Stroud, way to start us off here. Now, Charlie, I am going to go chalky, though. I am going to go with Gus Edwards at plus 135 because in this matchup, and it's part of the reason why I took Kareem Hunt last week as far as the way that this Texans defense is structured. But let's talk about Gus here at the start. So Gus, 13 rushing touchdowns this year. I mean, over the last 4 games, especially since Keaton Mitchell got hurt, they really relied on him. 15 red zone carries and 3 touchdowns in the final 4 games. And you could even throw away week 18 because that last game versus the Steelers, he barely played. Yeah. But the Texans, why we took Kareem Hunt is the Texans, they rank 2nd in DVOA versus the run. That's the way they close the season. But the DVOA stat is overrating a bit what they do defensively because they're really good between the 20s. But once they get into the goal line, opponents they pretty much have been rolling over. They had allowed 19 rushing touchdowns during the regular season. That was 29th in the NFL. We saw Kareem Hunt score the first touchdown last week, and then another short one off of a screen pass. Now, obviously, when you take Gus, there's always that risk of Lamar Jackson vulturing you, but I'm kind of doubtful that Lamar is going to do this, and especially when they get close to the goal line, because Lamar played a full slate of games this year, 30 red zone carries. That's the most red zone carries he's had in 3 years, but he only had 5 carries inside the 5-yard line. He hasn't played a playoff game in 3 years. I'm not saying he's not going to lay his body out there, but they're going to do whatever they can to reduce the amount of impact that Lamar has in those spots. Yeah. So it's when the Ravens get inside the 10-yard line, Gus Edwards is going to get the ball. And also another thing that really helps Dr. Nick Giffen, who's on the show with us last week, he's also on Gus Edwards, and he has fair projected odds for Gus around +100 to +105. So we're getting about 30 cents in value on Gus here. So Gus Edwards is who I'm going to take for Texans Ravens. B-Matt, who do you like in this one? Are you going for a Texan or are you going to take a Raven in this one?
Yeah, I'm not going to take a Texan. I'm going to go with a Raven here. I
thought maybe you'd see Dalton Schultz or something.
No, look, I did give plenty of thought to that, especially since I went with the other namesake last week and Dalton Kincaid came through with me. But
yes, he did.
My first pick, it's going to be Isaiah Likely. At +210. I thought Mark Andrews was going to play this week. So when they had this line out initially, I'm like, all right, I am definitely not playing this. We're going to see Mark Andrews. And now Mark Andrews was ruled out. So Isaiah Likely has a touchdown, at least one touchdown in 4 of the last 5 games that he started. And that includes one multi-touchdown game against the Dolphins. So when it comes to this Baltimore offense, it is very clear that the running backs and the tight ends are a heavy part of this offense. Also, there are some weather concerns. So I think if there is any, it's saying it might drizzle, I think that favors the short passing game as far as, anything potentially downfield. I was going to jump on Gus with you, but look, Isaiah Likely's been good to me this year. So I'm going to go Isaiah Likely +210.
I'm with you, B-Man. I took both. I like both of them to score in this game. So Likely, I think it's kind of crazy that we're still getting him at +200 or more, given his recent track record, given how they're using him in this Mark Andrews role. And as somebody who tracks the anytime touchdown scorer odds all year, you would never see Mark Andrews over +150. And then, of course, from a weather standpoint, just to kind of dispel some of that, think about back to that Rams-Ravens game of how much of a rainy monsoon that game was. Well, he scored a touchdown in that game, a big 60-yard catch and run touchdown. I'm not as worried about the weather when it comes to Likely. Maybe I would be more worried about somebody like Bateman or Nelson Aguilar, guys who are having that long ADOT that require kind of that long catch. So Isaiah Likely, that's who you're on. I'm even going to take a long shot as well. I did take a Texans long shot. I took Brevin Jordan around +950. Part of the reason why I took Brevin, obviously he scored last week versus Cleveland, but the Cleveland defense, along with the Ravens defense, play a lot of man coverage. And Brevin Jordan's numbers against man coverage are insane. His yards per route run is just off the charts in a sense. So a very limited sample size, but at the same time at +950, I'll throw a quarter unit on it and try that out. So, all right. So that is Ravens, Texans. Now let's move to Packers 49ers, where the Niners, big home favorites, 9.5-point favorites, but the total at 50.5. And our Nick Giffen has this game as a luck over. So he actually thinks that this game is going to see a lot of scoring. Now let's look at the anytime touchdown scorers. And right at the top, naturally, you have Christian McCaffrey at -275, and I'm seeing him as high as -400 in some spots right now. So they're very confident in Christian McCaffrey scoring in this game. And then followed by a favorite friend of the show, Deebo Samuel at +110. Then you've got Aaron Jones at +125 for the Packers. And then 2 more Niners with Brandon Ayuk at +130 and George Kittle at +140. A.J. Dillon, it remains to be seen if he's going to play. And even if he does, I can't imagine he's going to be very effective coming off the neck injury. And then you've got Jaden Reed at +210 and Romeo Doubs, who had a huge game against the Cowboys, at +275. That rounds out the top 8 for anytime touchdown scorers in this game. Now, the guy that I actually like, I'm actually going to take one of them from that list. I'm going to take Jaden Reed with the Packers to score. I grabbed it at +220. I would still play it over +200. And Reed, he led the Packers with 10 touchdowns this year, 8 receiving, 2 rushing. That versatility is really why I like him here. And also, he led all Packers receivers with 20 red zone touches. Now, I've been banging this drum all year. I'm sure I've mentioned it on the show. I've mentioned it on the recap podcast. I've mentioned it pretty much on any piece of content that I've done with Action Network. And that is that speedy slot receivers have given this Niners defense trouble throughout the year. And again, the Niners don't really have a lot of weaknesses, but I guess if this is the weakness, it would be speedy slot receivers, because if you look through the entire year and look at the guys who had success versus this Niners defense, it's all slot guys. Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, Devontae Smith, Tyler Boyd. They all line up in the slot over 50%, and they all scored a touchdown on this defense. Even Christian Kirk, who's Mr. Slot in the NFL, didn't score, but he had 6 catches for over 100 yards. So Now, another reason why we like Jaden Reed is how he fares versus zone coverage. The Niners actually play zone above league average, and Reed, along with Romeo Doubs, has seen his metrics just go up against zone coverage, like yards per route run, ADOT, target percentage. So he's one of 2 Packers to actually have success versus zone this year, but the other is Doubs. The reason why we're taking Reed over Doubs is Doubs, he mainly lines up outside. It's about 90% of his routes run are going to be outside, out wide. Whereas Jaden Reed, he's about 50-50. So Jaden Reed, who I like to score in this game, especially if there's a potential trailing game script. I like Jordan Love over on his touchdown passes as well, if you're looking at that. So Jaden Reed is who I like to score. Gentlemen, B-Matt, why don't you take us next year? Who do you like for a touchdown score in Niners-Packers?
All right, Gilles, I just got to say, man, love the pick. If I didn't pick George Kittle, is going to be my pick. If I didn't pick Kittle, it was going to be Jaden Reed, especially coming off a no-catch game. It sets up too perfectly. But
it's a little too quiet.
Right? Exactly. So I'm going to go George Kittle here. It's been a few games since he's scored a touchdown, but George Kittle, to me, at plus 140 is just too much value. So I look at this. This is the same defense that last week, the only thing that worked against them was Jake Ferguson. Jake Ferguson had 3 touchdowns, receiving touchdowns against the same defense. And let's be honest, George Kittle is, I would consider, a slightly better player. So let's just hope this game doesn't, let's hope it's not an absolute blowout. I like Jordan Love, but yeah, I love George Kittle in the spot. So I look at this 26 in DVOA versus tight ends. I look at the fact that this guy's, basically got a reception of 20 plus yards in almost every game this season. He's just a big play waiting to happen. And at home, feed Kittle the ball. So I was looking at this game. I really like Debo, Jaden Reed. And then I said, you know what? George Kittle feels due for a touchdown. So I'm going to go George Kittle here.
All right. So you're on George Kittle, Charlie collab. Are you on him too?
Yeah, B-Match is over here like I didn't exist. Like we didn't
He's
collab
saying,
on this
hey, he
pick.
said B-Match. Hold on. All right, let's rewind. This is a collab pick with my man Charlie DiSturco.
There we go. Yeah, but put some respect on my name. I mean, listen, last week I sang Glamorous. I will bear your ears with not singing for George Kittle this week. But tight ends kill the Packers. And I think that this is the great spot for Kittle, who, as B-Matt has laid out all the points, I don't need to dive in more. I just like this opportunity for Kittle. I think, we see a guy like McCaffrey, his odds are in the negative 250s, and that provides value for other players, such as Kittle, who gets a great matchup against the Packers, who allowed touchdowns in 6 of their last 9. So, yeah, I'm collabing with B-Matt. I mean, I collabed with Nick last week on 2, and we went 2 for 2. So here's to doing the same thing with B-Matt on this week.
Yeah. All right. So you guys are on the Kittle train. I'm going to take Jaden Reed. Let's now move to Buccaneers Lions, where the more we dive into this matchup, the more it seems like everybody feels like there's going to be a ton of points in this game. So Bucs Lions are pretty big home favorites, just under a touchdown at 6.5-point home favorites, but the total trending upward is now 48.5. Looking at the anytime touchdown odds, immediately you've got both Lions running backs right at the top. You've got David Montgomery at -120, followed by Jahmyr Gibbs. Also, they're both at -120, but then you've got the Sun God, Amon-Ra St. Brown at even odds. Mike Evans also at even odds. Rashad White at +110. Sammy Ballgame, Sam Laporta at +137. And then Chris Godwin, who did end up scoring last week at +225, followed by Jamison Jamo Williams around +275. I'm going to go off this list, though, guys. I'm looking immediately at, and I got to give a shout out to Stuckey on this one. I'm looking immediately to Cade Otton at +370 to score a touchdown. And as a fellow Cade Otton truther, myself and Stuckey and Matt Mitchell and everybody else who laddered his yardage prop last week, had a huge breakout game in the wildcard round. Led the Bucs 11 targets, 8 catches. He had 2 red zone looks. He did end up dropping one in the end zone, which was a very much a recurring theme for this Bucs offense last week. But much like Tampa, the Lions ranked 7th versus DVOA versus the tight end, but the actual data, like their bottom 10 in targets and yards allowed to the position, they've given up 6 touchdowns as well, one of those being our guy Tommy Tremble. But again, this is a game as well with the Lions. You look how fast they started against the Rams last week. This could be a game where the Bucs could be in trouble early if they're not putting points up and pushing the ball downfield. Could be a trailing game script as well. But I will say, I took Godwin last week, and we needed a last-minute touchdown just to get it. Like, I felt so scared that it wasn't coming through because it's such a big risk to take a Buccaneer that is not Mike Evans. So that's why I'm only going to put a half unit on Cade Otton today at plus 370, but he is my favorite buck to score in this matchup. Charlie, collab. Let's hear it again. What is the collab for Bucks Lions?
Yeah, I'm such a good co-host that I am going to say that this is a collab before I get it out with Brian.
Please lay it out for us.
We're going to go with Mike Evans at plus 125. Me and B-Matt on Mike Evans. I gave you guys crap last week. Everyone's taking a guy not named Mike Evans, and then what happens? He does not get in the end zone.
Everybody but Mike Evans.
Yeah. Exactly. So this is the time to zag while everyone zigged last week. Listen, you look at the numbers and it's hard to argue with Mike Evans. 11 touchdowns in 18 games, 61%. And you look at Detroit, and this is just a defense that is horrid against the pass. So we've seen Puka Nacua up out of 181 yards last week. Jay Jettas has put up 140 plus in 2 of the last 4 weeks against Detroit, and even CD had 227. So in a game where I think the Bucs are going to find themselves down and willing to pass a lot, and a game where Baker Mayfield's going to rely on his deep threat and his best option on the field, and that's Mike Evans, where we should see a lot of scoring, plus 125, when the rest of the market's around plus 100, seems like a great snag on Mike Evans. And listen, I was called out for it on Twitter too. Guys at the event last week, Bobby, one of the guys comes up to me and says, well, you got to take him next week. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. Mike Evans is going to find the end zone. He would have had a touchdown against the Eagles last week.
Dropped one.
But it dropped it. Yep. So this is the opportunity this week in a great high scoring affair where they're going to be passing a lot. Give me Mike Evans alongside B-Matt.
Hey,
all right.
I love this collab. I'm just going to add that if you didn't bet Mike Evans touchdown and you had made this a habit all year long, last week would have been the only week you would have been happy to not bet a Mike Evans touchdown. So look, we talk about a rebound game, like guys who have a drought, like one game kind of feels like a drought for Mike Evans. So Charlie, let's run the collab.
Yeah, and one thing about Evans too is if you got on the train early where you were betting him pretty much week in and week out, if you would just bet one unit on him every game through the entire regular season, you would have been up about 12 units in profit. He was the most profitable Buccaneer as well. So Mike Evans, I don't really think we have to dive too deep into how good he is, especially 10 years in now with, this kind of production.
I feel like I've got to add one thing though. Everybody should be get those Trey Palmer Twitter notifications going, all right? Because we need to know if he wakes up pissed off.
And that's the next point that I was about to make, B-Man, is that right now there is one other buck that we should consider, but we're just going to wait to see how he feels in the morning. If he's feeling okay and he's feeling melancholy, we're not going to take it. And if he's feeling happy, maybe that's the point where we stick back. But if Trey Palmer wakes up pissed off Sunday morning, you best believe we better bet that. Yeah. Because right now he has been on fire when he wakes up pissed off. All right, now let's move to the final game of the weekend. Chiefs, Bills. Home favorites is 2.5, over under at 45.5. Right now, this is probably the matchup of the weekend, even though we had it during the regular season as well. So we have a little, and again, these teams I feel like have played 6 times now over the last few seasons. So there's enough sample size now to kind of see how they play against each other. But let's look at the anytime touchdown odds, and right at the top, surging like a comet, is Josh Allen at -120. Isaiah Pacheco at +120 with the Chiefs right after him. And then you've got the receiving duo of Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce with the Chiefs, both right after them, also at +120. Then you've got James Cook at +120 for the Bills. Stephon Diggs at +120. I think you're seeing a recurring theme here that pretty much it's +120 for the top 6 guys. And then you see a pretty big jump right into B-Matt's guy of Dalton Kincaid at +260, followed by Khalil Shakir at 3-1 for Chiefs Bills. Well, one of those guys I think B-Matt is going to take. B-Matt, who do you like from that top 8?
Yeah, look, I'm going with Rashee Rice. All right. I looked at this game and initially I'm like, got to go with the Buffalo Bill. I just like the matchup better, and I said it's going to be bad weather. So then I thought, Rashee Rice is the only guy all year long that has been dependable. And he's been more than dependable. He's been very good to me every time that I've bet Rashee Rice. So look, The rookie has only gotten more confident each week. He still leads the league in targets per design route. So look, they design routes that are only intended to go to him. And if not, Patrick Mahomes can scramble or try to find somebody else, but it's they make an effort to get him the ball. Bad weather. He's got a low ADOT. So I'm not too worried about him being reliant on a deep ball or anything like that. He's going to get the ball. So I'm going to go Rashee Rice, pardon me, at plus 140. I got to go with the Chief this week, and I couldn't get myself on Kelsey.
One thing that's crazy about Rice too, be mad, is if you think about it, he's kind of underrated because of how much Puka Nacua has took off this year, even CJ Stroud as well. There's just been a lot of good rookies this year that sometimes I don't know if we give him the credit for how well he's been playing, mainly just because he's been on the Chiefs, right? So it's almost like, oh, you're only getting those targets, you're only scoring just because Patrick Mahomes is putting you in such good position. But a lot of the time, they're very designed well plays. His ADOT is super low, around 5 or 6. And he's taking that ball and he's going for yards after contact and yards after catch. So Rashee Rice, very solid receiving look for the Chiefs, especially in a game where they could be potentially trailing, and in a road playoff game as well, in what should be a hostile environment in Buffalo. All right, I'm actually going to take a bill. Now, I was able to scope around and find James Cook, but instead of at plus 120, I was able to find it at plus 160. So essentially, my cutoff for James Cook is about plus 150. I don't want to play him below that because there's a lot of volatility with James Cook. So here's why we're going to take James Cook, though, at plus 160, because as I led off with the top, he's been a very frustrating player, to say the least. I'm sure Charlie's had it this year, either getting vultured on yards or just vultured on the touchdown. The thing that's really frustrating with him is that he'll do a lot of the heavy lifting, and then Josh Allen will vulture him at the goal line. But the reason why we do like Cook, and I'm going to zig while everybody's zagging and is on Josh Allen, is actually a really good matchup for Cook because he is the Bills' main pass catching back, and the Chiefs rank 21st in DVOA versus running backs as receivers. They've allowed 4 receiving touchdowns to running backs, and one of them was James Cook. When they played in Week 13, he finished with 5 catches and 83 yards and a touchdown in that game. And also over the last 5 games, being overshadowed as well because of how much Josh Allen has just taken over the run game in Buffalo. James Cook has still seen 18 red zone touches over the last 5 games, and he had a touchdown in his hands from Josh Allen, a nice, beautiful pass against the Steelers. Dropped it. Again, this seems to be a consistent theme now. We're taking a lot of guys who pretty much should have scored last week, but then dropped it. So now with Cook, it's not quite like sexy odds, but at the same time, I feel that James Cook is going to get at least the first few cracks at the goal line before then Allen just goes hero ball and he'll just seal the deal for you. But I had expected odds for Cook around plus 120. That's where he's at, about Bet365. I am seeing plus 160 out there. So try to get as much value as you can, especially considering the Chiefs. I don't want to overlook this here. They're so much better defending the pass, but they rank 27th the DVOA versus the run. So again, James Cook and Josh Allen, if you're going to give me both, I'm going to take James Cook, the RB1 at plus 160 in this spot, or you could even wait until closer to kickoff. You might be able to get odds closer to plus 170, but James Cook at plus 150 is my cutoff to bet it. I got it at plus 160. That's who I'm taking in this divisional round matchup. All right, Charlie, what do you got? Take us home.
Yeah, avoiding the Bills because Josh Allen is basically a nightmare right now when it comes to touchdowns. But I do like the James Cook one, but I'm on his yards. But anyway,
for sure,
this is a touchdown show, so I'm going to give out touchdown picks. And that's a long shot and a safe play on the Chiefs side. And my favorite Chiefs scorer is Isaiah Pacheco at plus 120, best odds at Bet365. And then McCall Hardman's my dart throw at 8-1. We'll start with Hardman. He's a gadget type receiver, so we've seen he can line up in the slot. He can line up on the outside. He even could take end arounds into the out of the backfield. And this is a great opportunity against a Bills defense that they're down Benford, and now Rasul Douglas will most likely return, and he'll be most likely sticking to Rashee Rice. I'm assuming that they're not going to have him not shadow the best player on that football field, which is Rashee Rice. And that means that opportunities are going to be had for Hardman. We saw last week against the Dolphins, they took a couple of deep shots on Hardman. He could have had a walk-in touchdown, just slightly underthrown. I think that we're seeing more confidence between Mahomes and Hardman now that he's back in KC, and maybe even Andy Reid's giving him a little bit more opportunities. So 8-1 with maybe Kadarius Toney also out again. in a game where any Kansas City receiver can step up, and a guy I trust is a veteran who's been around for a while with Mahomes. I'm going to take McCole Hardman. And then Isaiah Pacheco. I don't know how much I really have to say when I talk about Isaiah Pacheco, but
he was almost on the boost.
He was on the boost last week. He scored a touchdown in each of his last 5 games. The Bills, without Matt Milano, have been a little bit susceptible to giving up touchdowns to running backs. And now their injuries are piling up even more in that linebacking core. Touchdowns in 9 of the last 15. I just think this is an opportunity where Pacheco's going to see a lot of work. He didn't play against the Bills, was it like almost a month and a half, 2 months ago now. And Jerick McKinnon ran one in. I think this is a perfect opportunity where we'll see plenty of red zone opportunities for the Chiefs. And a guy like Pacheco who could break multiple tackles, he runs angry against a weak linebacking corp of the Bills, as long as he gets past that front line of defensive linemen. Plus 120 is just way too much. I was expecting this in the minus money. Saw the plus 120, had to grab some.
Yeah, so Pacheco, I think you just made the point right there. I thought he was going to probably be around minus 110, or maybe even odds at best. I think the reason why we're getting that is road playoff game, potential trailing game script. So that's really, but also at the same time, the Chiefs have shown even in games that they're trailing, they don't really abandon the run. They just use it a little bit more effectively. So Pacheco, again, solid look by you. Hardman, I'm a Hardman truther. I've been talking about Hardman now for a few years, and really after Tyreek left to go to Miami, I thought he was going to be like in that Tyreek role, letting Juju stay outside and him being more of that gadget type player. Got hurt a little bit last year, then goes to the Jets, and then we almost kind of forget about him. But also now coming back, another thing that really adds an edge for Hardman is he is returning the kicks for them too. So there is potential that he could return one for you as well. So McCole Hardman, great find there at 8-1. Isaiah Pacheco, I probably like that one a little bit more, but again, I think both of them are pretty solid. And also another one that I was looking at too, if you're just looking at this trailing game script right now, Bet365 is hanging a line at 550 for Justin Watson. And Justin Watson's been playing the second most snaps of any wide receiver. He leads the team in ADOT. So if we're in a trailing game script and Mahomes is just trying to buy time and just chuck it down the field, I think Watson is going to be the he's somewhere down there guy in this game. It's either going to be him or Hardman. So I think there's value on Chiefs long shots is I think really what we're getting at here. Yeah. So, all right. So Pacheco and Hardman, that's what Charlie is on. I'm on James Cook and BMAT is on Rashee Rice. So that's all 4 games. But now let's talk about the Bet365 anytime touchdown boosted parlay. Now, this one was a little trickier. We had to split it up over 2 days here, but we are going to pair Amon-Ra St. Brown with Deebo Samuel. So we got this parlay. It's plus 320 pre-boost. They boosted it up to plus 395 at Bet365. Now, the Sun God scored 7 to 9 games before last week. And now he only finished with 7 catches and 110 yards last week. So I'm still liking our chances here for Sun God to get a touchdown here against this Bucs defense that is bottom 10 and wide receiver 1 from a DVOA perspective. Now, Deebo, we almost thought about somebody was going to maybe even have him as an official bet for this week, but he's around plus 100, plus 110. We were looking for a little bit better odds. Well, our own Nick Giffen actually loves Deebo so much this week. He's on him for 2 touchdowns at 7-1. So we're not going to be as greedy as him. We're just going to take the old just anytime touchdown. But Deebo, again, 8 touchdowns in the final 6 games of the year. Yeah. He barely even played in week 18. He was still pretty effective out there. And Charlie, I know like Deebo is your guy. Like it would feel weird in a divisional round game not having Deebo somewhere on the show for something.
Yeah, I already bet this boost. Deebo is my guy. The 2+ touchdowns was quite literally the most electric moment of my touchdown show career. So listen, I'm all in on this. I love both these players. You don't have to say more. My first thought when I looked at the slate was like, all right, I'm betting Deebo Samuel. What are his odds? And then at the time when I looked, it was around plus 100. I might dabble a little bit more in some plus 110, but for this boost, I feel like it's the perfect mixture. 2 guys, high volume end zone threats that have been scoring. So I'm gonna log this run in the app and then let it ride.
Oh, and Deebo's got a ton of angles that you can look at too. Like, I mean, even rushing receiving yard combos, alt lines, like even Nick, like another thing that he likes is Deebo to lead the game in combined rushing and receiving yards. And it's pretty good. I think it was around like 7-1. So we won't talk too much about that because this is still the touchdown show, but at the same time, everybody here at Action Network feels very good about Debo having a big game in this one. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, it's only a matter of time with Jared Goff and Detroit Lions playing at home. So that is the Bet365 anytime touchdown boosted parlay. Amon-Ra St. Brown paired with Debo Samuel boosted from plus 320 to plus 395. And the Touchdown Show is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only or 18 plus in Kentucky and present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, Louisiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions and restrictions apply. All right, gentlemen, that's all for us. We made it. We got all touchdown best bets in for all 4 divisional round games. And we're going to see you again next time for championship week as part of the Action Network Power Hour. Make sure to download the Action Network app and you can get all of our touchdown bets as soon as we bet them. I've got long shots for each game, so you could check that out as well. You can track your own bets and you got direct access to all of our shows and content. So I want to thank you again for watching the Touchdown Show presented by Bet365. Bon chance.